Shalom, Mishpachah. This is here out checking in. We are beachside at the Slave Castle. You guys can see up there. I don't know if I can zoom in. Oh, I zoomed in on myself. Slave Castle right there. So we are all the way live from Ghana land, the home of the free. So I wanted to come on here today because conversation me and my wife earlier about something that is, kind of a puzzling mystery, but works together in really weird ways. So I wanted to come on here and talk about it. And then I guess anything else that people want to talk about, we can definitely talk about too. So we are out here once again. We are beachside. We're right here at the Slave Castle, if you guys can see. There's nobody on here just yet, but if anybody does come on here or watches this later, they can see where we're at. So I just want people to see. That is the Slave Castle, and that is the marina, where they dock their boats, the fishermen. The fishermen actually have been in from sea for a month to allow the fish to repopulate the ocean, because I guess they fish so much that the levels are down. The levels of fish that are in the ocean are down. So they've been off this month to allow people to, or not people, to allow the fish to repopulate. So now they've got their boats docked. They'll be back out again tomorrow, I suppose. So we're talking about science and religion and how science and religion work together and apart. For the Gentile world, science and religion don't work together at all, for the most part. You've got academics that don't necessarily believe in the spiritual world because they're taught not to. In every university, every college, no matter where you go to around the world, in their science department, they're not going to teach that the earth is flat. In their science department, they're not going to teach that man was created from the clay, from the dirt of the earth. They're not going to teach that woman was created from man. They're not going to teach any of those things in any science department that you go to, in any school around the world, right? Any accredited institution is not going to teach these things because accredited institutions have to be accredited, and in order for them to be accredited, they have to teach material science. And this is how the world has been trained out of the spiritual mindset. So all academics all over the world will deny the spiritual aspect in their scholastic world, right? In their academic teachings. They'll teach God. I mean, even in the religious institutions, they'll teach God, they'll teach Jesus, they'll teach Allah. But once you go to the science department, they're going to teach, Jupiter, Mars, and Neptune as well, which is a falsehood that can, be easily proven just by doing this. or hold on, just by doing this. Huh? You see how that's flat from one end to the other? That's all you have to do to disprove that there's anything else other than this world that we live in right now, with the heavens over top of it, and within it, a spiritual world underneath. So the wild part about it is that people there's two groups of people in the academic community that exist, one within the other. You've got what they like to call the functioning, and I guess I don't want to use that terminology, but they call it the functioning, that's what they call it. This is the person that believes, that's drank the Kool-Aid, that believes all the stuff that they're taught, and then repeats it, and then perpetuates the cycle of teaching the nonsensical material only world, right? You have those people that believe in the scientific method, that believe in all of these things, all of these theories and all of, about the universe. And they repeat these things and perpetuate the concepts in an academic level. And so you don't, people think that when you have theories and equations and they come up with science from these theories and equations, people believe because there's a theory about it that makes it true or that makes it scientific. It doesn't. A theory is just a theory. It's a guess, an estimation, a pondering. So you don't necessarily have to follow the theories because it's just what somebody else has created. And a lot of times people like to get caught up in the fact that there is an equation that says a certain thing, but don't understand what math is or what equations are. All equations are, and then one of my teachers taught this to me a very long time ago, all an equation is, and I'm talking about back in high school, all an equation is a description of the environment that's around you, or a description of an imaginary environment that you describe with numbers, right? So you can describe a parabola. You guys know that the parabola is the rainbow-shaped arch that goes up and then down. Well, you can describe that parabola using an algebraic equation that if you insert it into a graphing calculator, that'll provide you the code for the algorithm. You put this specific code in, it reads the code, it'll give you I said algorithm, I mean parabola. It'll give you the parabola, right? This particular equation describes this event in real life, this parabola, this line that is curved like an upside down U. You can do a straight line, right? There's, graphs for a straight line. There's graphs for a curved line. There's graphs for lines going up, graphs for lines going down. And then in all three dimensions, you can write the equation that will fit in the model of a real thing. Just like you can write an equation for things that do exist, you can also write equations with environments that don't exist, right? You can write an equation with a model that's flawed and invalid, right? So you can write a code out of mathematics for the death of a star, but you won't be able to just do it any old kind of way because you'll have to create the environment that the star is in. Okay, well, we'll in this environment, we'll create it with, zero gravitational influence, or, 100,000, pressure. I guess, I don't know how you measure gravity in the universe, or what, what metric they use to say the amount of force, but you can apply that to a star, or what they believe a star is, and come up with a formula that would have an outcome that you would then use to interpret what a star is, right? And then that entire thing would be false because you've input false metrics, like you're assuming space, you're assuming gravity, you're assuming the size of the star, you're assuming the distance of the star, you're assuming all the things, you're assuming the composition of the star, right? All these things you're assuming, and then inserting them into an equation, and then coming out with an answer, and then saying this answer is fact. Does that make sense to you guys? That's what they're doing with science. They're taking the models for what already exists, and then they're applying false metrics to those models, and then creating from those false metrics an entire world of things that they can describe using a mathematical language of things that don't exist, right? They have mathematics for a black hole, and black holes don't exist. They have mathematics for cosmic strands, what they call them, with this, remnant of the Big Bang that is this shard of pure gravity and energy that is left over from the encapsulated space, that the encapsulated singularity that the entire universe was stuck into, and this strand of energy is completely gravitational. If you go around it, you can bend time in such a way. These are all, just hypothetical situations in a hypothetical world with hypothetical objects, right? And that's what you end up getting with modern theoretical science. And now that does not mean that science is not real. Observable science is real. The things that we can see and the equations that exist from the things that we can see are real. We know that mankind has been able to harness the electron and the power of electricity to use it in different forms, to create displays and images in all sorts of different ways. And we see that as a technological advancement, and it is, right? Then we then, apply that to more than we should, because we've mastered the electron, or managed to manipulate the electron in such a way as to be able to show us things in a digital environment. It doesn't mean we've also mastered the bottom of the ocean or up into the to the upper atmosphere, right? Into the what they call the cosmos, right? And we know that there's a dome, a firmament over the sky. We know that within the earth there's a realm where spirits live. We know these things, right? But since science has taught otherwise and has shown us all these other things that they've come up with, like TVs and cell phones and all these other types of devices, we then assume that because they've been able to do what they've done with technology on Earth, that somehow that also transfers to beyond what we can see and knowledge of beyond what we can reach. And it just doesn't, right? They fooled us with certain technological advancements to make us believe they can do more than they can actually do, right? And so I just want you guys to see real quick. We've got a double. Now see, this is the real deal. This is real science right here. To be able to use what you know to go out on the ocean and be able to make a way for yourself. That's scientific, right? That's high science right there. It doesn't have to be cell phones and quote unquote satellites. The science of the world is being able to navigate. I'm sorry, I'm trying to film out there and I'm actually still filming myself. Is being able to navigate using the world around you and observations of the world around you in order to get a job done. This is what science should be used for, if you understand what I'm saying. And so if we want to also look at, and I talked about this, two different types of people in the scientific community. So we've talked about the first ones, right? The people that are kind of they call them functioning, what do they say? The functioning idiot, and I hate using this terminology. It's not good words, not words that I use every day, but just trying to explain the concept. The person that's doing their job, believing that, like the person at Walmart who has all the Walmart pins, or the person who is a Walmart employee that really believes in Walmart, that has all the pins and the vest, and you've probably seen the video where the one Walmart manager is like, "Let's go Walmart," and he's trying to get everybody hyped up. That's the person that the scientific community cultivates well, right? The person that's drank the Kool-Aid and believes in the nonsense and promotes it to other people who are now walking around with this information thinking that they have the knowledge of the world and of space and all that, when actually they have this just great big lie. And the person that has taught them these things has also been lied to and has been fooled as well. That's one person that you have, and that makes up the majority of people out here that believe in all of this crazy stuff. Then you have the other type of person who recognizes all these things are false, but promotes the false reality in order to get some other thing accomplished, whether it be psychological superiority or whether it be summoning some sort of entities using these, you know, experiments as means or methods to summon some sort of entity. And I'll tell you what I'm talking about here. You've got undercover satanic scientists which believe in the spirit world, believe that they can summon demons, and these demons can give them technological advances, and then also do these things under the guise of science. Like the people who work at CERN are aware that I don't know most, or maybe just the upper echelon, but the people who are operating CERN appear to know that they're actually trying to summon things with these devices and not really look into the atom and see what's going on with this and with that like they are claiming to. Why? Because at CERN, we see that there's a giant statue of the Indian goddess Kali, who is the goddess of destruction. You know, we recently watched this movie, Oppenheimer, and Oppenheimer is talking about all of these scientific theories, and this is the way that they've come up with creating the atom bomb. And so he's calling himself again, you know, the god of destruction, right? I've become the destroyer of worlds, the god of destruction. The same reference that they're using with the CERN goddess to, you know, the atom bomb, right? So what is the connection? Why does there seem to be these academic people that believe in all of these pagan gods, right? Because of the second person that I'm telling you about, the secret satanic scientists. This is actually a big deal because these satanic scientists are really ruling the world because they're using these scientific ideas to summon things with them. And then those things are telling them things when they're summoned, and then the things that are being told are actually the real science, which is how to control people's minds and how to shape ideas and really worlds, shape concepts of worlds so that people will believe in something other than the Bible. That's what, you know, these undercover scientists are doing. That's what their whole mission is. And so when you see these NASA astronauts and they're, you know, talking about all of the things that they had to do in space, they're lying because they're these satanic secret scientists. They're lying to you about the nature of reality. They're lying to you about what they've been through. They're lying to you about the theories that they've come up with and how this concept exists in the universe. They're lying, right? In order to do certain things, in order to lead you away from the truth of Elohim, and in order to control you in a religious system that you don't even know is a religious system. And so I'll give you an example, a really important one, because apparently this person is one of the people who helped develop who helped to develop the concept of science in the modern world today. Shalom, shalom. I've got one person on here. Shalom, shalom. We're just talking about science and religion and the way that they work together and how they work apart. We mentioned earlier that there were two types of scientists. A scientist that really believed in all of the stuff that he was promoting. And then the second type, which we're talking about now, is the secret satanic scientists who are really pushing propaganda, satanic propaganda, and using the observational science that they can see in reality to push the propaganda about the things that we can't see, like the space and, you know, the shape of the earth and all of these other things. And so the example that I wanted to give you guys was Jack Parsons. And Jack Parsons was one of the leading scientists of the 20th century. He lived in the early 20s, I believe, and was both, you know, an award-winning scientist and an occultist, right? Known avid occultist who would do experiments and who worked for the precursor to NASA and started his own laboratory. It's called JPL, Jack Parsons Laboratory. They call it Jet Propulsion Laboratory, but it's really Jack Parsons Laboratory. He started his own network of scientists and they all did two things. They researched science and they did occult rituals. They were also Satanists, right? So you think, wow, what do these people, and just to show you guys where I'm at, if you are still on the east side, we are in front of the slave castle, right? And so you say to yourself, what do these two things have in common? They should be polar opposites. People who are, engulfed in scientific practices and theories and equations, and that they're on the cutting edge of technology. What in the world would they be doing worshiping the devil? Because the devil is some ancient mythological construct that people use to bounce their personalities off of, to say, oh, this is the evil of the world. It's a figment of a fabrication of the human subconscious, and it's used to as a foil for controlling people. That's all the devil is. Why is this scientist worshiping this ancient false entity? Well, because the second thing is true and the first thing is not. It's not a mental construct that represents all the evil in the world. It's an actual spirit, right? An actual evil spirit that is telling people that this is what it is, and at the same time leading technology to and influencing people that are advancing in science, right? And so what Jack Parsons does, and this is all written down, you can look all this stuff up, it's in the early 20s, right? 1920s. So what Jack Parsons does is he goes out and gets a bunch of people together and decides that he's going to do an experiment slash ritual. It's actually called a ritual, but then they're saying it's an experimental ritual. It's done out in the desert of Nevada, I think it's Nevada, where they have to use this huge bomb to make an explosion to do some sort of ritual thing, right? They needed it. And I don't get too deep into this stuff, just enough to know what I need to know, right? And again, this is a person who was a Satanist, so I'm not going too deep into, the darkness that is that religion. But in order to figure out what we need to know, you skim the surface so you can figure these things out. And so he goes out to the desert with a virgin, with this bomb, and with a couple of other people to do this ritual, which is also an experiment. They're calling it an experiment, but it's a ritual, right? And so they go out there. The ritual is called Babylon working, right? And it's a ritual supposedly to bring forth some sort of entity from another world into the virgin, right? In a mockery of the Immaculate Conception. So they go out there, they do this ritual, they blow this huge bomb up, they come back, and they claim the ritual worked. When they come back, now you can look all this stuff up. You can look Babylon working up. You can look all the Jack Parsons, all this stuff up to verify what I'm saying. The Babylon working ritual slash experiment to summon some entity from some other world, according to Jack Parsons, it worked. That it was a successful experiment, that it was a successful ritual. And whatever they wanted to accomplish, they accomplished. Not long after this ritual, I believe it was 6 months, Jack Parsons is blown up in a laboratory experiment gone wrong. His lab explodes, all of his information is destroyed, and he is destroyed, right? And then from that moment on, you have the start of JPL, Jack Parsons Laboratory, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which is what they do. They aid NASA and the coming NASA in developing rocket technology, right? And so for some reason, these occultists require high technology in some instances to perform their rituals, like bombs or large explosions that are going off to summon beings. Fast forward 25 years to the 1940s. Fast forward 25 years to the 1940s, and then you have Oppenheimer, with the Oppenheimer, um, what that's talking about in this Oppenheimer movie, where they're splitting the atom, and then there's a huge explosion from splitting the atom. And they've been working on this, from this amount of time, and this is the way that it works, right? And so, are these things connected one to the other? Does the information gleaned from whatever spiritual entity that was summoned in Babylon working manifest itself in this way? Because you have, at that same time in 1928, 1927, 1926, all of these different eras, or all this different era, you have a lot of movement going on. You have the establishment of the Nazi Party in Germany. You have the consolation of all of this money and influence and scientists in Germany starting to control these different parts of Europe. You have the stock market crash in the United States, which sent the black population in the United States down into the slums. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is a United States ritual that corresponds to the Great Depression, right? That happens directly before the Great Depression. Is this some of the information used to cause the Great Depression? Because we know the Great Depression was caused because some people got out before it happened. Some people got out of the stock market before it happened. So if that was the case, then that means they caused it. And what really happened from the Great Depression is it sent all black communities, which were rich communities at the time, into the slums. It dropped all that black wealth from Harlem and from elsewhere down to nothing. So do you see what I'm saying? That these scientific experiments, these projects, these rituals, which is what they really are used to glean information from satanic entities to attack people on earth that these Satanists want to attack. And of course, the main target is the Hebrew people, the people of America, the black Jews or the Hebrew Israelites or whatever you want to call us. We are the number one target. And from that era, from this Babylon working era, we have a lot. The projects are first started in the 1920s. The concept of the concentration camp being installed in two places at that time, in Germany and in America, with the public housing project system. They're happening in two places. And then when they're discovered and exposed in the 40s, and then the Germans are wiped out as far as their military, and the German scientists start to enter into America, you then have the New Deal with FDR, which opens up the coffer, the money chest, to redesign the entire United States after the Great Depression, where you have the first generation of white people going into the projects, saving their money, and then getting government-funded loans to move to the suburbs. Then the second generation of project dwellers watching the white people succeed and come out of the projects, going into these facilities, and then being trapped there because the jobs that were in the city moved to the suburbs. And now you can't get a loan to go out to the suburbs. You're stuck in the city in the projects with no rent, but able to be manipulated by the guns and the drugs brought into that environment, making it a concentration camp in the city. All this stuff comes out of the 1920s, right after this Babylon working experiment that actually works on the people who are enslaved in Babylon. Do you understand what I'm saying? All of these things come to a head. All the technology that you see being cultivated right now with AI and with all of the other things that are going on are directed at the Israelites. It's all directed at the Israelites. All the propaganda that's in the media right now with Kamala versus Trump, with the assassination, with all of these different movies. The movies that are coming out. You had They Clone Tyrone on Netflix. You had Leave the World Behind on Netflix. You had Book of Clarence on Netflix. All three of these movies are aimed squarely at Black America. Squarely, right? And particularly Israelites, because of the information that's inside of it. This is propaganda that is aimed at us. And then now you look at the presidential race, which is clearly white versus black, all of it aimed at us and coming forth from all of these different traumatic events. Like you have a different traumatic event, a different bomb, a different explosion, a different experiment, and then from these experiments come this new mindset. I'll give you another example, 9/11. Yeah, I know you guys, if you're old enough, I know you guys remember seeing the tabloids and the magazine, you know, the Bat Boy, the Bat Boy magazines where they say, oh, Bat Boy is in, they found Bat Boy in Arkansas. You know the ones I'm talking about. Like, is it Star? The magazines that you get on the, if anybody's here, nobody's on here, but the magazines that you get on the side of the register, the ones that got they found Elvis alive, they found Tupac alive, they found Bat Boy, the tabloids. You guys know what I'm talking about. So they have, and if you're old enough, you remember them. They may not have them no more, but if you're old enough, you remember them. And you remember when they would have 9/11, that a devil's face was coming out of the smoke in 9/11. Do you guys remember that? And I always thought, oh my gosh, that's so ridiculous. Nothing like that could ever happen in real life, and this is just ridiculously uh, put promotion for their magazine. It's just insane. Is it though? From a large explosion, some entity being able to have come into this world and have control, right? It's not insane according to the history of these things happening. What type of mindset came into America after 9/11? We know 9/11 was one of the largest rituals to ever take place that was hoisted onto mankind as a psychological weapon, used to attack the Middle East, used to electrify the American population in order to start a war. It was a ritual from start to beginning, and it was a mind control ritual that involved real human victims. You guys have to understand the basis of the rituals is human sacrifice at their core. This is how you summon these demons. This is how these demons have psychological power, and this is what these demons require, right? This is what you're looking at. You're looking at high technology, scientific advancement, and spiritual darkness all in the same breath, which is what Babylon was all about from the very beginning. Remember, the Tower of Babel was the technologically advanced architectural structure, right? And this is what that represents in the far future from that time, where the science, the modern science of mankind, in a secret and satanic way, merges with the underworld in order to cast a spell on the world. That's what we're dealing with. But again, hallelujah that we're able to see beyond this so-called science to see what actually exists. And then looking through, because there is some science that does exist. They are able to look down at small molecules and create large explosions from them. So we know some of the science is real, but we just have to be discerning enough to be able to determine which is real and which is false. And we know that the cosmological structure that they give us about what the world looks like and what the world is and where the world is false. Do you guys understand? All right, you guys. Just wanted to really, we was talking about this today, and I wanted to come on here and share some of these ideas because I want to, save them for posterity. My wife says that they need to be written down in a book somewhere, and she's probably right, because once the lights go off, all this is going to mean nothing. But as for right now, some of these ideas, in order to keep them for posterity's sake, we're going to put them here and we're going to do them live as long as we can. Okay, you guys, that's all I got. Shalom, shalom. Oh, if I see somebody has just come on here, I don't know if this person has been on the whole time and has been able to see some of the things that we've been talking about. But if you guys have any questions, or if this one person, whoever it is, shalom, shalom, if you have a question, feel free to ask it. We just discussed, if you wanted to go back and look, science and religion and how they work separately and together, that there were two different types of people in the scientific community and in the academic community, that there are people that actually believe in the science that they're talking, the theoretical science that they're talking, and then others who don't believe it but still use the technological advancements to promote it, but to do something else, which is ritualistic in nature. So if there's any questions about that, about Jack Parsons, we talked about Oppenheimer, and then the thing is, Oppenheimer comes from, these rich, quote unquote, Illuminati families, same type of family as Rothschild, and so it's not a coincidence that this Oppenheimer person is instrumental in causing the death of all of these hundreds of thousands of people through the atom bomb, in even a ritualistic fashion, because he's coming on and saying, "I have become the destroyer of worlds," which is a reference to Kali, the goddess of death and destruction, and in Indian religion. The same goddess, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, whose statue is outside of CERN right now, which is supposed to be a particle accelerator, and it's supposed to be able to, find out new things in the atom. Really, it's just a scientific experiment that is used to summon some sort of entity to have a psychological control over an amount of people, a group of people. All of it is about control. It's not about going in outer space. It's not about going to the bottom of the ocean. It's not about figuring out what is inside the atom. It's not about any of those things. It's about control, whether it be mentally or physically, with weapons or, whatever they can glean from whatever information the entity that they're summoning is giving them. And like we discussed earlier, these explosions, whether they be small or large, are somehow instrumental in summoning this demon, right? We see that from the experiment Babylon working from Jack Parsons in the 1920s. We see it from Oppenheimer. And then again, we see it from the fall of the Twin Towers in 9/11, with the psychological aspect going out being warfare and control of the American population through fear of terrorism, right? Okay, so if we don't have any questions or any, topics that are kind of related to this topic to go down, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. Shalom, shalom, whoever this is that's online. I really appreciate you checking it out. If you want to go back and look at the beginning of it, and underneath the comment, in the video, the comment bar, ask any questions. I can come back at a later time and do another live and answer those questions. Unless you have any questions now, I'm trying to hold on a little bit to see if anybody has anything to ask or if anything comes through. But since there's nothing, we'll go ahead and say shalom, shalom, family. We'll see you next time. Shalom, shalom. Oh, we're also out here on the beach at the slave castle here in beautiful Africa. Shalom, shalom.